Hey, Jay.
Hi, Nafisa.
I can't believe we are mostly done with January. The Australian Open has just ended, and we have our first Grand Slam champions of the year.
Honestly, I'm in disbelief. Like it feels like we've been waiting forever for a Grand Slam, and it's finally here, and it went like that. Like
Mhm,
2 weeks passed in no time,
mhm.
and now we have two champions sitting on the throne, and I'm like very ready for the next one, honestly.
Right. This one felt like a fever dream, mostly because of the time difference. Like, I'm fighting for my life every day to try and watch as much tennis as possible with the 16-hour difference. They're in the future, we're in the past. And yet, it has been very slow and very quick at the same time.
Yeah, the amount of sleep that I've gotten over the last 2 weeks has been terrible, abysmal, actually. Like my sleep pattern is just off. Some matches were worth it, others were not.
There should be some like viewers compensation or some like you should be able to apply if you don't live in the country or in the time zone where the slam is happening. You should be able to like call out of work, receive some sort of like support to get your sleep schedule back on track, because I feel like I've been up for 40 days and 40 nights.
I agree. I'm looking forward to the sleep now that it's over, honestly.
Hello. But it goes back to being just as bad when the next not just as bad for the French Open, but like 6 hour difference, 7 hour difference is better than 14. So I guess I'll take it.
Exactly. It's way better. Honestly, the Australian Open is the hardest one for me. So glad that's done. But I am excited to talk about all of the really great things that happened over the past 2 weeks.
Gee. Yeah, let's get into it.
You have got to be kidding.
Electrifying the crowd. Oh, that's incredible. What a way to win it.
Those who thought we were putting water on my fire, you're really adding gas to it. And now I'm really burning so bright right now.
So we're back for season 2 officially.
Official.
How are we feeling after the Australian Open?
Cardinal official. A few things. Very, very excited. There are spoilers ahead, so if you don't know who won the Australian Open and you don't want it spoiled, stop here, watch the matches, and then come back. But I'm super excited for Madison Keys, my sister. Very excited for her. Very excited for Taylor Townsend. Just very excited for Black people. Some Black people. There are some
Heartbreaks.
Oh,
Heartbreaks. Like there are so many people. There are so many matches that I watched where it was one Black tennis player against another Black tennis player, and I was like, nobody wins when the family feuds.
you know, I was thinking this morning. Black on Black tennis violence is serious, and it needs to be. It's bittersweet though, because if you have a Black on Black match, that means there are more of us playing and getting farther into the tournament.
Right. One of us is gonna win.
Right.
Which is great. But on the other hand, blink, blink. Somebody loses.
That's true. But that's the thing about tennis. You will lose so much. You'll lose more than you win, unless you're Yannick Sinner, and then you win more than you lose. But there's a lot of loss in tennis. And there is something to be said about two Black players playing on the court that will always be great, because it's like Arthur Ashe is smiling from up above and he's like, wow, look at my children.
No, that's fair. That's actually that's a beautiful way of looking at it, I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, so let's give the people a reintroduction of who we are. We're into season 2. We are a small but mighty podcast. So Jay, tell them all about us.
So a good rally was birthed from myself and Nafisa, who are twin sisters in New York City, who grew to love the sport of tennis over the past year, I would say.
Yeah.
So much so that we decided that we needed mics for all of our hot takes. And here we are. We have been educating ourselves on the game of tennis, hopefully educating our listeners on the game of tennis, having a good time, covering Grand Slams, covering player controversy, covering all the things that you would want to know if you're interested in the game of tennis.
Yes, and we always prioritize our Black players, our brown players, and anything that anything that has to do with identifiers that we have for ourselves. So Black, women, queer players, like anything along the margins is what we try to cover.
Yeah.
All right, Jay. So we have a lot to unpack, a lot to get through in our very first episode of the 2025 season. So today we will be unpacking so much, including the symbolism of Gail Monfils and Giovanni Impesci Pericard playing each other at the Australian Open. Our upsets of the tournament, our greatest ones. So we'll let you sit on that and guess what they could be before we reveal what they are. Quick thoughts on Sloane Stephens' performance at the Australian Open, given my prediction that I think she will retire by the end of the season. We're talking about Ben Shelton in the finals, the semifinals again. We're talking about Ben Shelton, Novak Djokovic, and their comments about the Australian media and Australian sports journalism. We're talking about Novak's injury and justice for Carlos Alcaraz. Of course, we have to talk about Madison Keys and her big breakthrough, well-deserved breakthrough. There's so much. We're also talking about Taylor Townsend getting to the Australian Open finals again, her second time. We have comments on Sinner versus Zverev, and we'll leave y'all with the next tournaments that you should definitely watch and keep an eye out for. And at the very end of our first episode of the new season, I'm dropping a new segment that I call Black Tennis Fact, where I share exactly one tennis fact that has to do with Black people. Very excited about it. So,
Nice. Let's
Jay?
get into it.
Okay, let's get started. All right, Jay. Gail and GMP on the court.
Yeah.
What round was it? First round.
It was the first round, which I thought was criminal.
Okay, I want more of your thoughts. How did you feel about the match?
I honestly couldn't watch it. I started it and then I realized that I was too invested in it because my heart was breaking literally watching them go against each other. Like every single point that Gail won was a point that GMP lost. And I felt that every single time. And then towards the second or third, I think it was at the end of the third set, I was just like, this is actually too much for me. I'm too invested in this. I cannot watch this. I need to go to bed and then I'll look up the score yesterday. Jesus. Tomorrow. I thought the tennis playing was phenomenal. I thought that both players like brought their A game. GMP honestly stepping up to the plate and handling a server, a performer, an entertainer, a talented all-around court player like Gail Monfils. I thought he did well for himself. And he's so young. Like it was really impressive to see. And then Gail Monfils keeping up with a teenager. That was also really impressive to see. In the first round, after he just came off of winning a title, I thought he would be burnt out. I thought he would be like, I don't have it in the tank anymore. But he really showed up and showed out. And I loved the match, but I really could not watch the entire thing.
That's fair. I actually did make it through. I was so surprised and shocked. Sometimes for me, tennis is actually there are too much stakes. Like you said, like I get too involved in it and I have to turn it off and I'll just Google who wins, especially when it's two Black players, because I legitimately don't want either one of them to lose, but somebody has to. But I did watch this whole thing. I thought it was really interesting that GMP, who is a big server and is becoming known for that, he's only 21 years old. He hasn't been pro for very long. And this was the first time that he's been in the Australian Open and also the first time that he's gotten like spotlight. People were like, oh, this is a match. So a 21-year-old going up against the legend that is Gail Monfils, who is, like Ben Shelton said, like a highlight reel, like a living highlight reel. 38 years old. That 17-year-old difference was so interesting to watch. And by tennis standards, Gail is considered older, but he's so young if he steps off the court and is just in everyday life. But it was really interesting that the announcers kept saying that GMP has never broken someone. Like,
is that true?
In a major match at a slam, he's never broken someone.
Oh wow.
Which he also didn't do against Gail. And I think once I heard that and saw it in real time, I was like, oh shit, I don't think he can win this match. You have to break people. You have to break your opponent in order to win it. Unless either that or you're gonna go 5 sets, be exhausted, and if you're new to playing Grand Slams and majors, that's gonna wear you out. So once they said that and it clicked for me, I was like, oh, Yale is gonna take this, but it's gonna be fun to watch, which it was.
Yeah, but I will say I'll give GMP his flowers because he survived 3 tie breaks with Gail Monfils. And in the final set, he didn't do that badly. Like, obviously, Gail took it 6, but GMP, he won 4 games. And it wasn't a blowout. He didn't bagel him. He didn't breadstick him. There wasn't a 6-0, 6-1 score on the final tally. Honestly, people can say what they want to say about his performance, but I think he did really well, all things considered. Like, he lasted.
Yeah, before we get into more, can you explain to people who might be new to tennis what breadsticking is?
Yeah, so a bagel and a breadstick.
Yum, delicious carbs.
A breadstick is when the final score of a set is 6-1. So your opponent wins the set 6, and you are only able to win 1 game. A breadstick, 1 game. A bagel is even worse. That's when your opponent wins 6 games and you don't win a single one. So the final score for the set is 6-0. I don't know where that terminology originates from, honestly, but that's just what it's called in tennis. So yeah, no bagels, no breadsticks for GMP, and that is commendable.
Tennis has some, when you think about it, some really disrespectful terminology. To bagel somebody, to breadstick them, lucky loser.
Lucky loser.
Crazy work. Like, y'all just whoever made up these terms and the scoring, I'll see you in hell.
Honestly, yes. Like, a terrible person. But the tennis world has kept these terminologies alive, I guess. So terrible people uphold them.
Y'all need an ethics committee.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to say about the match? I have one more comment.
No, go for it.
Last thing that I will say about Gail versus GMP is that was just nice to see. I truly felt like very privileged to be able to see 2 Black men like playing this sport that, like you don't always see yourself in it. And yeah, to see them both, like, they're both good in their own ways, and to see them embrace each other the way they did at the net, and the same with Gail and Ben, like, that's what I love. But apart from the game and the stress of a black on black match, we have to come up with another term for that, by the way, but I'll stick to that for now, is seeing the way 2 Black players embrace each other at the end, because it's different. And I think that we all know that, like, even if you're a player or a spectator, but as a Black person, it's just different when it's 2 of us on the court. So that was really fun to watch. And they're both Black Frenchmen, which says a lot. Like, you have one who's like coming to the end of his career and one who's just starting, and it feels like a real passing of the baton, and that's nice.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Okay, Fee, do you want to get into our upsets of the tournament?
Yes, girl. I only have 2. But
I have 3.
Wow. Okay. You start, because I want to know what the third is. I know that 2 of your 3 are my 2, so you can just list yours.
Okay, so the first upset of the tournament, honestly, it didn't really it was upsetting, but it was not surprising. Tiafoe getting knocked out in the second round.
Francis.
It honestly, it made sense because he had to fight in the first round. He vomited on court in the first round, and it went to 5 sets. So that told me everything that I needed to know about the second round. And it was just, after that first round match, I was like, I'm not watching his second round match, because I know for a fact that he can't come back from this. He cannot come back from this. And I was unfortunately proven correctly.
Now, for the first match where he threw up, did his team say why he threw up or anything?
No, they just said that his stomach was upset.
Child, he was hungover. We all been there, partying a little too much the night before.
Wait,
I'm just kidding.
Oh, his birth? No, it wasn't his birthday.
I'm just kidding. I actually don't know. I don't know. Don't actually. I take that statement back. Francis Tiafoe, don't sue me. I ain't got no money, but yeah, that was sad. First round you're throwing up. Second round you're out, and we had such high hopes for Francis.
Yeah, we did. And honestly, I was kind of like confused about the situation, like what is happening here. But the commentators were also confused about the situation because they were like, it's sunny here in Australia, but not that hot. And you're used to playing tennis. You are a professional tennis player. So the movement of you being on the court is nothing new. So what is happening here? Like, what is the surprise element? What is the thing that is making your stomach upset? And nobody can really figure it out. I don't know what happened, but I'm really sad that it happened because after that I was like, he's out in the second round.
Yeah, that was an upset. I was really heartbroken about that, and I hope that we see Francis go further in other slams this year.
I hope so too. I mean, I think we both have really high hopes for him because he's really good on the hard court.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really sad to see him crash out like that.
Okay, what is your second upset?
Naomi Osaka retiring against Benchik after one set.
My Shayla.
She almost made it to the fourth round where she would have gone against Coco Gauff if she hadn't been injured. And she's been dealing with this abdominal injury for so long now. And it's so sad. She was doing so well in that first set. She was killing Benchik. She had her moving from one side of the court to the next. Like, she was not playing down the middle. She was being very brave with her shots. And then that abdominal injury showed up and took her out. It was so upsetting.
As upsetting as it was, I thought it was also bittersweet because Coco Gauff versus Naomi Osaka would have driven me right through a wall. There's no way I would have made it through watching that match, learning who won, learning who lost, because I would have been heartbroken. Like, in a way where it would have felt like I had actually gotten dumped. So in that way, I'm a little glad that it didn't happen. But the way that she went out of the tournament was devastating because she was playing so well. She was back. She was a sunflower, okay? And she was getting it done. And she was she was dog walking that lady in the match.
She was, and the commentators were like, this is so beautiful to see two moms going at it. And I was like, Naomi Osaka is ripping this lady apart. Ripping her apart. And then that injury happened. And Benchik ended up taking the set. It was awful to see. It was awful to see. You could see that Naomi Osaka was on the verge of tears on the court. And then she looks over to her coaching box and she looks at Patrick, who is on her coaching team, and she does this. She makes like a little like rotating sort of like signal with her finger to ask him basically if she should keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
And while the camera wasn't on him, I knew what he said because maybe like 30 seconds after that, she retired from the match.
Yeah. Which, I mean, was a smart thing to do, especially with an abdominal injury. Like, you don't want to make it worse. But wow, really devastating because she was fucking cooking.
Yeah, it felt like she could have gone very, very far this year.
Yeah.
If not to the final.
And I honestly think she would have. But I am happy she stopped before it got worse because hopefully she can like rest, repair, and come back for a 1000 level tournament later in the year and just really kill it. So Naomi, get well soon, girl.
I would like to talk about my third upset now.
Okay.
And this one isn't really an upset because when I saw the draw, I was like, oh, I want to talk about Coco. Coco Gauff.
Okay.
So unfortunately, Coco got knocked out in the quarterfinals by Paula Badosa. When I saw the draw before the tournament even started, I was like, yeah, barrage the second round. Yeah, even Benchik, I was like, no, I think Coco could beat her for sure. When I saw that there was the potential for her to go against Paula Badosa, I was like, no, I don't think that Coco has. has what it takes in this tournament to beat Badosa.
Mm.
Now, Coco last year, Coco from the WTA finals, Coco from the United Cup, she had everything. She could have gone to the final for the Australian Open. But as soon as I saw Coco's first round match at this year's Australian Open, I was like, oh, we are in danger, girl.
Mm-hmm.
She was just very unsure of her shots. She made like very, very easy shots difficult. Her and that net were married. That net over and over, and then the serve deteriorated. And I understand that the sun was out and she was looking right into the sun because, as we know, Coco doesn't wear a visor, she doesn't wear a hat. But the amount of double faults was actually painful. And so I knew that she hadn't gotten started during this tournament on the right foot, and it was only a matter of time before she hit the brick wall that is Badosa.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good point because she had been riding high. She had only dropped, I think, one set before getting to the match with Paula Badosa in the quarterfinals.
One set. She dropped the first one with Benchik in the 4th round.
Yeah, so she was cooking too. And honestly, on a personal level, I needed Coco to win this match because of Paula Badosa's weird photo that she took last year that she did apologize for. But I don't forget easily. And for context, Paula Badosa was in China last year for a tournament. She took a photo at dinner and she used chopsticks to narrow her eyes and pull her eyes back. And then she addressed it and she was like, she didn't know that was offensive. And I'm like, you're a grown lady.
Yeah. Like 2 + 2 actually is 4, Paula, please.
So take some responsibility and some accountability. That's why I also needed Coco to win. But I mean, honestly, my girl Sabalenka got her the next round. So not too broken up about it, but it could have been Coco and that would have been nice. On to the next one. Still in hard court. Their next tournaments are hard court. And yeah, Coco's great. She's still number 3. So
right. She still has it in there. I've seen her play her best tennis just last month. So my hopes are still high.
And she's the queen of winning ugly. Like, even when her game isn't great, even when it looks ugly, feels ugly, she can still win more than like any other women player that I know right now. So Coco's getting something big, and it's coming soon.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that for the rest of her career, however long we are lucky enough to have her, she's going to win at least 1 chip a year. I'll say that.
That's a really exciting prediction and one that I agree with.
Okay, I am very curious about your quick thoughts on Sloane Stephens' performance at this year's Australian Open. And for context, for our listeners, Sloane Stephens had maybe the worst draw of the entire Open because first round, she's going against Sabalenka. But everyone's, the potential here was, former Grand Slam champion goes against current reigning Australian Open champion. Can she stake her claim can she get back into the conversation, Sloane? And I personally didn't think so. And I was quickly proven correctly, unfortunately. That match was hard to watch.
One, thank you for asking this question, Natalaje, and getting back to my prediction for the 2025 season. 2, I did not watch that match because I didn't need none evidence to further prove my point. I could not. I was like, tennis. One of the best things about tennis is that it's not over until it's over. And to be honest, the person that you think is gonna win could win, but they also could not. And it happens plenty of times. So Sloane definitely had a shot. Like you said, she is a former US Open champion from 2017. That was 8 years ago. But as we'll talk about soon, that doesn't define who you are as a player. Like, you could be a finalist 8 years ago and come up with something beautiful 8 years later. So I didn't watch the match because I knew how it was going to go because Sabalenka is home. The Australian Open, she calls her home slam. So I'm like, she's not going to come out the gate and lose. I'm sorry. She
No.
just is that f***ing good.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch the match. I do think that there is still a possibility that Sloane will retire at the end of the year. I don't want her to, but it is a possibility because she's not playing her best tennis. She hasn't been for a long time, and she's getting older, and maybe the things that she wants out of life changes in the way that Gael Monfils said his dream isn't to win the Australian Open, it's to have a big family. So that could be happening for her too. So all of these things I'm thinking about, and I'm like, will she? Maybe. Or maybe she'll write it out and do a Venus where like there is no official announcement. She plays sometimes and doesn't play others. But I don't, like I said last in our 2025 predictions video, it's not in here and it is not in here. And it could be in the way that Madison Keys has it. I said, and I've been thinking, and they played each other in that 2017 US Open final. Sloane won, but 8 years later, Madison Keys is on the podium as a Grand Slam champion. So that's the difference between the two of them. I do think it's still in the cards that Sloane could walk away from the game this year, and I'll leave it at that. And we will watch the next 10 months play out and see what happens.
Okay. Let's get into some really good shit. 2 words. Ben Shelton. Honestly, for me, Mr. Australian Open this year.
That's my Shayla. I love Ben Shelton. I have for a long time. You know this ever since we got into tennis. But like, not even winning, he's still the player of the tournament for me. I think the girls and some of the guys really like him for the looks and that's not really my tea. That's
physicality is very appreciated. His physicality, I will say. That is a child to me, genuinely.
Right.
So I respect the playing and I respect his come up during the Australian Open.
Right. I was just gonna say that that's not my ministry. The bod, the face, he's a baby. I'm 10 years older than him. No, but the spirit, the personality, the ability to give props to pivotal players who came before him, Gael Monfils, is perfect. That little biracial boy is the face of American tennis right now. I will say that.
He is. He went further than so many American favorites. Tiafoe, Fritz. That was shocking. The only other American tennis player who did as well as Ben Shelton was Tommy Paul.
Yes, my favorite American men's player, by the way. You know, I like Tommy Paul. The silhouette of his kits, perfect. The inseam of his shorts, perfect. The way he wears the high top sneakers with the long socks, perfect. Yeah. Shout out Tommy P.
He's a really great player. I will say real quickly about Tommy Paul. He shot himself in the foot during his last match against Zverev. The quarterfinals he made, and he had him. It was like 5-2 twice, the first set and I think the third set also. And he kind of just bombed. It was actually very sad to see. But anyway, let's not take away Ben Shelton's shine. Mm-hmm. This is the man of the hour. This is the man that the people are talking about for several different reasons. So Ben Shelton makes the semifinals of the Australian Open. Who saw it coming? Not many people, honestly. Not many people. I don't think that he was on a lot of people's bingo cards, but he was on mine. If you rewind, if we go back to the very last episode of this podcast, I said I would love to see Ben Shelton take chip after chip after chip. Now, obviously, he didn't take the chip this year at AO, but he was pretty close. He was closer than a lot of other people, including Carlos Alcaraz.
Was he closer than Alcaraz? I thought Alcaraz was knocked out in the semis. Quarter.
No, yes, you're right. Alcaraz got knocked out in the quarterfinals.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. But we need to talk about that too, because there is some controversy around that. I will come back to that in a second. Is there anything else you want to say about Ben?
No, that, and I do think that he proved that he's a man of the people by giving his comments on the Australian media. I thought that was actually very valuable. And it was really nice to see a young player and a player who's not Novak speak critically about the media around tennis, because he was right. For context, Ben Shelton criticized the Australian media's post-match interviews, on-court post-match interviews, saying that a lot of the interview questions were negative. A lot of them were like belittling to the players, and some of them were even a little racist. And he wasn't wrong. He wasn't. After Ben Shelton and Gail Monfils had their four setter, was it 4 sets?
Yeah.
Yes. And Gail Monfils walked over, retired from the match. Ben Shelton gets on the court and he's being interviewed by this man, and the guy goes, yeah, Gail Monfils could have been your father. And Ben Shelton is confused immediately. He goes, is it an age thing or is it because we're both Black?
I actually did not catch that. I didn't know that happened.
Like, who is who's writing these questions? Who's writing these questions? It was so unnecessary. Like it felt like the end of journalism, genuinely.
That's crazy. You know what that reminds me of? After Kendrick released Not Like Us, the Tennis Channel interviewed a bunch of Black players, not all at once, but in like post-match interviews, and they asked them, Kendrick or Drake? Excuse me? To the Black players, Kendrick or Drake? You asked Taylor Townsend, Ben Shelton, Kendrick or Drake? Now,
yeah,
come on.
So yeah, shout out to Ben Shelton for actually saying something, because I would literally, at the end of the matches at AO this year, I would turn my television off because the post-match interviews, so bad. Like, oh my goodness, it was terrible. So yeah, he's having a little moment right now, and I love that for him.
To just speak on tennis journalism really quickly, you are correct. Their post-match interview questions are sometimes so awkward and so pointless that I'm gobsmacked. How did you come up with this question? You're asking Jasmine Paolini who has the best coffee. You're asking an Italian person who has the best coffee because you're in Australia. That is. And you can't point to asking people those questions because you want to get a bit of personality out of them, because they're terrible questions. You can't get personality when someone's thinking in their head, this is the dumbest question I've ever received after winning. I just won a Grand Slam match and you're asking me about coffee.
Yeah.
It is absolutely insane. And then to add racism and sexism on top of just the stupidity is a lot.
Yeah. And ageism, all of the isms.
Right.
A 19-year-old player, Lerner Tien, who is a 19-year-old American player, got asked some like really crazy questions about because of his age. And it's like, what is this? Who is this for? Why? Who's screening the questions here?
Mm-hmm. And I will say, going back to Ben Shelton, I think the way he handled his issues with the Australian media and the sports journalists was way better than the way Novak handled it. I'm sorry. And I at one point I got online and I commented on a video from Christian's Court. Shout out to Christian's Court. If you are on TikTok or YouTube, definitely check out his videos. He is a Black sports journalist that covers tennis. But I commented on one of his videos and I was like, I said what I said to you in real conversation, which is, Novak has so much power and influence, yet he boycotts the most inconsequential things. He could be using that power and influence to truly change the structure of professional tennis and change the ATP and the WTA for the better. And that would be such a great legacy. And then people got mad at me. They got upset They said that he helps people. He helps pay for people to train, and he helps young kids, and he has the Novak Djokovic Foundation. And I blinked so hard because I was like, great, but also that doesn't mean that what I'm saying is incorrect. He hasn't used his power and his influence and his need to complain, which is fine. That's not a flaw, to change the structure of things. He complains about the journalist, but in his complaint, he just refuses to take an interview with Jim Courier. Doesn't have a problem with Jim, but says that he just can't be on the Australian news channel that airs it because of the other interviewer, Jones, who basically disparaged him. But I'm like, there are other ways to address that in a less selfish way. The way Ben put it, it wasn't like, yeah, I'm boycotting this because they said something disparaging about me. Ben had all of those other players on his back, and he's like, well, I've heard interviews with other players and they've been disrespectful. The interviews have been disrespectful for me too. So it's more of a communal thing. Meanwhile, Novak is like, Jones called me a has-been. Jones called me this, that, and the third, and then didn't want to take the interview. So I need people to really think about the difference in their responses and really try not to give Novak as much as he gets. That is a grown man. Everybody wants to Novak these nuts, okay? Because he could be doing a lot more.
Yeah, Novak is definitely babied. And I think that very much so reared its ugly head in his match against Carlos Alcaraz. That quarterfinal, I was like, what is happening right now? I thought I was in the Twilight Zone. It was crazy. It was ridiculous from start to finish. And Novak, honestly, this is a hot take, and I say this a lot online and people disagree with me. Novak, when he is losing at this stage in his career, if he has any sort of ailment, he bumps it up to 10 so that the player across the net from him sympathizes with him, and they're like, wait, this is Novak, like Novak injured, I don't want to be the cause of this. Or there's something that happens with them psychologically where they back off of him, and he knows that. I think Novak is smart enough to know what he's doing.
I was just about to agree. I think he does know that. If we remember Gray Sleeve Gate,
right, that it's always that fucking me. And so that's what happened in the quarterfinal match against Carlos Alcaraz. Carlos took the first set. Novak was like, I need a medical timeout. I am injured. And the whole procession happened. And then he came back and he won the match in 3 straight sets because Carlos was mentally just like, what? Like you're claiming that you have an injury, but you're moving from side to side on the court. Like, and I can't figure out how to play against you because you are technically, allegedly injured, but you're not showing up like a person or a player who's injured. Mm-hmm. It was actually like a huge mind. And then because he's Novak, 98% of the crowd is for him. And they're screaming their heads off, especially because he had the injury, quote unquote. And so it felt like Carlos Alcaraz versus a stadium of people. And I felt so bad for Carlos. At one point in the match, he was sort of like just angry, like visibly upset, screaming at himself. And his camp was just like shoulders shrugging, like not really knowing what to say to him or what to do. And that is what makes Novak a villain to me, truly.
Yeah, I mean, the classic tennis mind games. Like, I'm sorry to say, like, he's not the first player and won't be the last to do it, but just the way he did it, like Carlos said basically in a post-match interview in Spanish, which they need to do more often. He said, if you're injured, be injured, but if you're playing, play. Like, the limbo is kind of what was the worst part of it. And then I've never seen Carlos so mad in a post-match interview where it was basically like coño, like he got played by Novak.
He really did. He really did. But I know that was the match where I think for a little while, so Carlos and Novak have their head-to-head is very interesting. Going into the Australian Open, it was 4-3 for Novak. He barely had the slight over Carlos. And so, and every single match that they play is really close. It's really good. It's really interesting. And every single time, after every single match, they would come to the net and they would embrace very lovingly, actually. But I think after this match, Carlos learned that Novak is not his friend.
Yes.
Novak looks out for Novak. If Novak had to choose between you and him, he's going to choose him every single time. And I hope that Carlos learned that very valuable lesson. And I hope that Novak, I don't know how long his career will be. I don't know how much longer he will play. But I hope that he never wins against Carlos, because I hope that Carlos never takes his foot off the gas ever again going against Novak.
That was great. I have no notes. That was perfectly said, because Carlos has the ability to wax his ass if he would just switch mentally here. Novak is a legend for a reason. He is a fantastic tennis player. So I guess going into a match, and I can only predict, but if I were Carlos going into a match against Novak, I'd be like, fuck, this is Novak. Like, he's really good. There's added pressure playing somebody like him. But I think Carlos is someone who can beat him and beat him and beat him again if he switches this off mentally and just goes dog mode. So I hope that's what we see from him every time they get on the courts ever again.
Yeah, 100%. But you know what? I was upset about it the night that it happened, but I'm not even tripping on it anymore, because I'm getting my lick back at Wimbledon 100%. If Novak is feeling healthy, I think there's a very good chance that he makes the final at Wimbledon. And because Carlos is Mr. Wimbledon, I know he's making the final on that grass this year. And I'm getting my lick back in 3 sets, and I'm calling it. Just like last year, he's destroying that old man on the grass. Mark my words.
Okay, we shall see. Okay, let's move on and discuss the woman of the hour, Madison Keys.
Yeah. Icon, legend, she is the moment.
Hello.
So this match is fresh with me because it just happened. And I that match, so Madison Keys went against Sabalenka in the final. And that match was a roller coaster. Genuinely, the energy shifts in that match were very intense. Madison Keys started off very strong, and then the energy went directly to Sabalenka in the second set. And then the third set, it was anybody's to take. It was so close. But to see Madison Keys come out on top when she has been vying for and working very hard professionally in tennis for 16 years, it was just glorious. It was so glorious. And how she cried when she won it, how she went over to her team and her team was crying, how her husband, her newlywed, was just like in tears and like emotional. And then she went back over to the players' bench and she was just laughing from disbelief. I was like, you deserve it more than Sabalenka. Like, love to Sabalenka. I think she's a champion. I think 100% she might take it next year, but this wasn't Sabalenka's year. This was definitely Madison Keys' year, and I'm so happy that she managed to pull it off.
Yeah, I think her trajectory throughout the tournament was prime example of how prime example of seeing someone lock in and not take their foot off the gas, lock in, and then just keep locking in, stay locked in until the very end, and like having the final match being the pinnacle. Like, it was beautiful to see. Half her matches throughout the Australian Open were not half her matches, but almost half her matches were against top 10 players. So to be on her way to the final, to beat Rybakina, Danielle Collins, and Iga Swiatek, who I swore was going to the final.
Same.
And then to beat Sabalenka in a really great match. Like, even though you now know who won it, if you haven't seen that match, you should watch it. If it's available on YouTube or something, because it is truly a really, really good match. But Madison Keys is someone who deserves this win because she's fought so hard physically and mentally to get to this point, and then to get to the point and lock in and get over the finish line is so nice to watch, especially coming from a POC woman like her who like has faced her own like struggles in this game and in this world. But to give more context, Madison Keys has faced Sabalenka in a semifinal, the US Open semifinal in 2023. And if Madison Keys had won that, she would have been in the final against Coco. It would have been an All-American final. And Madison Keys won the first set. The first of 3 sets, she won that, and she was on fire, locked in, confidence through the roof. And then in that second set, it just went downhill. And then the third set, Sabalenka won, so Sabalenka ended up being in the final. So that was a disappointment. And then last year, do you remember at Wimbledon, she was playing so well. I don't even remember who she was playing. I think it was the quarterfinals, though. She was in the quarterfinals playing Jasmine Paolini. It just came to me. And she ends up having that hamstring issue.
Yeah.
And she's trying to continue playing, crying on the court because she's playing a really good game, but her freaking hamstring messes up. And so she has to withdraw. And that was devastating for me. I cried my little eyes out because I was like, she deserves to continue on. She's playing great ball. Like, so, wow, happy for my girl. So happy that she finally got it. And what a way to start 2025 for her.
Yeah, I agree. It was a really satisfying end for me. I was very much so. I was prepared for Swiatek Sabalenka final.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have watched it because, you know, they're great. Like, what do you want me to say? They're both very great. But a Sabalenka Keys final, now that's interesting. And I'm glad that we got that. Honestly, I wouldn't have bet any money that Keys would have made it to the final because of who was in her way. Swiatek in the semifinal, and she manages to take her out. Like, and Swiatek won the first set.
Mm-hmm.
And the probability of Swiatek winning a match when she wins the first set, it's like 92%.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, wait a minute. I think I know the writing on the wall here. But Madison Keys just locked in and beat her in a tiebreak in that third set.
Yeah. Let me just say thank you, Madison Keys, for getting Black History Month started early, because I didn't know how long we'd have to wait to see another Black woman on the podium after Coco at the US Open. And I know Madison Keys is half Black, half white. She identifies as biracial, but I'm speaking as a Black woman who identifies with Madison Keys' Black side. I'm not white, I'm Black. So to be able to see her as a half Black woman win this is beautiful. But also, back to what you were saying, I think the difference between Madison Keys and Iga in that match was the mental maturity and mental capability that Madison Keys has because she's been pro for 15 years. Like, you can only do that when you've been pro for that long, when you've gone through enough physically and mentally, and when you're like, this is my time now. Like, this is it. There isn't going to be there could be nothing else, but this right now, I'm going to capture it and like really make the most of it. And you saw that on her face. I was like, wow, this lady, she came to play.
Yeah. She really is an icon. She really showed up and showed out.
Mm-hmm. So shout out to Maddie Keys.
I think it's finally time to give doubles tennis its shine. In particular, one doubles tennis player that I feel is really going under the radar when she deserves so much hype, especially here in America. I want to talk about Taylor Townsend.
Okay.
So for those who do not know, Taylor Townsend won Wimbledon women's doubles last year. And, you know, there was a little applause. There was a little, she ate that. But now, this year, she managed to make it to the finals of the Australian Open also with her same partner. And I think it's commendable. She's beautiful to watch on the doubles court. she's really instinctual. She watches out for her partner, but she also like, knows how to cover her side of the court. She's just a beautiful doubles player. And it's also really exciting to see her play because she's on. She's on. Taylor Townsend and Siniakova had an epic run to the final. And in the final, they beat Ostapenko, who is a doubles giant. She's so good in doubles. People sleep on her doubles abilities and talents. And they slayed the giant. That was so nice to see.
But I will say that Taylor Townsend and Katerina Siniakova are the new giant because they're ranked number 1. They're the number 1 women's double seed were the number 1 women's double seed at the Australian Open. So they are the new giants, but it's so new. They just became partners. And you're right, Ostapenko is a doubles, Goliath. So I just want to add in a little note and say that I'm really excited for their partnership because I think she's found someone who like really sticks. Even though I loved her and Leylah Fernandez together, that was really cool to see. But like them being together is really exciting. And shout out to Taylor Townsend. She deserves the world, and she's getting it in doubles.
Yeah, 100%. Congrats to her.
Okay, but last but not least, we're gonna talk about Sinner versus Zverev. Yeah, I mean, we like we said in the beginning of the podcast, we try to focus on Black and brown players. So this episode has been really fun, but we also have to talk about winners. And Sinner
is undeniable. His talent is undeniable.
Listen,
he is a winner. He is a champion,
and he's a ginger. So Black people, if you know what's said about ginger. So let's talk about Sinner. I knew he was going to win this. Zverev he chokes. He is the bee rabbit of the tennis world. And I am happy to say that he has choked again.
I think all of Zverev's choking is just karma. It's karma. Rearing its ugly head. I don't think he will ever win a Grand Slam. I'm so sorry. And I think that is his karma that he has to walk with.
Yeah. The thing that I dislike about Zverev, outside of the obvious, but they're allegations, so I can't be like, they definitely happen. They're allegations of domestic violence, but he had a partial admission to it. And so if you're going to partially admit to something and then not take accountability and get into a post-match interview and say you never want to talk about it again, you never want to address it again, that's my problem with you. So anytime you lose in a Grand Slam final, I'm praising Jesus and stomping feet because you are getting what you deserve. And will he ever win a final by the grace of Black Jesus? No.
Hard no.
So I'm just happy to see that the tradition, Zverev's only tradition besides abusing women is losing in finals, and I'm happy to see that it's continuing.
That will be his legacy within the tennis world for sure.
Okay, we're losing light, but we have come to the end of our talking points. So let's talk about the tournaments that are coming up next. I have a list of just a few of the next ones that are 1,000 points or more for the women's, for the WTA. So next up we have the Qatar Open. That's not how you say that country. It's Qatar. That's what I learned. But if you're listening to this and you know how to pronounce it correctly or you're from there, please tell me. But it's 1,000 points. It's from February 9th to the 15th, and that should be good. Then we have the Dubai Championships. That's another 1,000 level tournament. The day after, February 16th to the 22nd. I know. And then on the women's side, the next upcoming tournament is Indian Wells, the 5th Grand Slam as it's called, on March 5th. Very excited for Indian Wells. I love Indian Wells. I wish I could go.
Yeah, I think Indian Wells is going to be really good this year. I think a lot of people are seeking vengeance on the hard court.
Yeah.
including Taylor Fritz, who has won Indian Wells.
This is true. This is the one thing that he does win. So maybe he can redeem himself.
Maybe, but maybe not. We shall see. On the men's side, we have the Dubai Championships, which is a 500-point tournament happening February 24th to March 1st. So that gives the men a couple of days to relax and get their bearings before Indian Wells happens on March 5th.
That is very exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. The sun is going down, like I said. So let me quickly introduce a new segment that we'll be ending every episode of the podcast with. A segment that I am calling Black Tennis Fact. Today's Black Tennis Fact is one that I sourced because I am nosy as hell.
I'm excited about this. I'm curious to see if this is a fact that I already know or not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's test it out. Okay. So I'm nosy and observant. And I realized that in Ben Shelton's player box, apart from his dad, who is his coach, was another black man. And obviously, I'm going to be like, who is that black man in the player's box? Because there aren't that many black people in players' boxes in tennis. I didn't know, but I was like, that's cool. Then I saw that same black man in Madison Keys' player's box.
Yes.
And I was like, I have to know this black man because he is a black man in tennis. Or BMIT, as I like to call them. So I was like, I got to do my Googles because black people in the tennis world are so influential. Like, you exist in this world, and it's a world that I want to exist in. So I got to know who you are. My Black Tennis Fact is that man is named Richard Langford, and he is a strength and conditioning coach. He is both Madison Keys and Ben Shelton's trainer. He was formally drafted into the NFL, mostly did not play, mostly practiced. He also played in the Canadian Football League before joining the USTA 10 years ago. So my Black Tennis Fact is that Richard Langford exists as a trainer, which is very cool. He trains two of the most successful tennis players currently playing right now. And yeah, he has like a cool background coming from the NFL, the CFL, and now to the USTA. So shout out to him. I need to meet him because I love strength and conditioning just as a hobby myself. So yeah, shout out to him. And happy that we now know who he is and have him in our proverbial Black in Tennis network.
I like that fact a lot.
Thank you.
Give Richard his shine for sure.
Thank you.
All
well,
right. Jinx. Going down, kids.
Jinx. And clearly we both have to get to our respective sports games since we both wore jerseys today. So yeah, we'll end the episode like that. I hope you enjoyed our first episode of the new season. I hope you enjoyed watching the Australian Open. We do have full-time jobs, so it's really hard to manage this podcast and work and personal lives, but we are going to come to you again in 1 month's time with a roundup of tennis in February.
Yeah, something to look forward to, you know?
So...
Sorry, I had a thought and then it slipped my mind, so keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, keep your eyes out for that. In the meantime, before our next podcast episode at the end of next month, follow us on TikTok because we do like to post content throughout the week there. And
but also let us know your thoughts on the Australian Open. Like, we've been talking for so long. We're also very curious to know what you thought about the matches, what you thought about the winners, your controversial takes, or anything that came to your mind when you were watching over the last 2 weeks.
For sure. And tell us your predictions for the next month of tennis. Who do you think is going to get more points? How do you think Madison Keys' win will affect the rest of her play? Yeah. And if you have any questions for us that we could potentially answer on the podcast, feel free to email us at agoodrally@gmail.com.
Yeah. All right. We're out of here.
Okay. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.